It seems like AI is everywhere these days. Like every day there's a new model. Don't get me wrong, it's exciting and all, but how do we even keep up? What's actually, revolutionary and what's just, I don't know, hype?
Yeah, you're definitely not alone in feeling that way. This explosion of AI models really shows just how much competition and investment is pouring into the field right now. So today we are diving into this AI model frenzy, and we've got a great Fortune article that really breaks it all down, what's driving it, and how can we actually make sense of it?
Okay, so this Fortune article, it points to ChatGPT, OpenAI's ChatGPT, as kind of the turning point, like just busted the floodgates wide open. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt ChatGPT was a big deal, but I think it's important to look a little bit deeper. I think this frenzy that we're seeing, it's really fueled by this pursuit of what researchers call AGI, artificial general intelligence. So basically, this idea of AI that can truly think like a human, that's the big goal. That's like the North Star for so many in this field.
Okay, so each new model, it's like another step towards that big, AGI.
Yeah.
Speaking of different steps, the Fortune article also mentions how different organizations are approaching this, right?
Absolutely. You've got folks like Ilya Sutskever over at SuperSafe Intelligence, and they're taking this really interesting approach. Total secrecy. They're holding back, not releasing anything publicly until, they say, they've achieved AGI.
Whoa, that's a bold move. It really makes you wonder. I mean, well, companies like OpenAI, they're constantly releasing these models, iterating, getting feedback. You've got super safe intelligence over here betting on this one, momentous unveiling. What do you think? What are the advantages and disadvantages of each approach?
Well, with OpenAI's approach, you get constant feedback, right? Constant refinement. They put it out there, get user data, see what works, what doesn't, and then boom, they adapt. Plus, it keeps everyone excited, fuels investment, and, potentially speeds up development.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, but I can't help but think that all this constant releasing, it kind of feeds this hype cycle, right? Maybe even pushes this need for speed over, I don't know, maybe more important things.
That's a valid point. Now, on the flip side, you've got super safe intelligence with their radio silence. Now, it's all shrouded in mystery, but it also means they can work without the constant pressure of public scrutiny. That could be really valuable, especially in the early stages of research where you want that freedom to experiment, maybe even stumble a bit without everyone looking over your shoulder.
That's so interesting. It's like this dichotomy, right? One very open, one completely closed. And it just shows that this race to AGI, it's not just about the tech, it's about the whole philosophy behind it.
Exactly. There are these fundamental questions about how do we get to AGI? How do we make sure it's safe? Heck, even what does it actually mean for AI to be general? All of those questions, they influence every single decision being made.
Okay, so with all of this going on, all this activity, how do we, the non-experts, actually tell the difference between just a regular update and a real, groundbreaking leap in AI? It's like, how do we filter out all the noise?
You're asking the right questions. The Fortune article talks about two major things to look for: new use cases and what they call novel approaches. So let's break those down. New use cases basically mean this model can do something completely new, something we haven't seen before, unlocking these possibilities that before were just theoretical. Think of an AI that can predict earthquakes or, personalize cancer treatment.
Right. That would be huge. Those are breakthroughs that would really signal a major change in what AI can actually do. So what about novel approaches? What makes an approach, stand out?
So instead of just focusing on what the model can do, look at how it does it. A novel approach, it might mean a model can do similar things as other models, but it does it in a way that's just way more efficient, more, elegant, if you will. Think about natural language processing. Traditionally, that relied heavily on statistical methods, analyzing these massive amounts of data to figure out patterns in language. But now, newer models, they're based on this thing called transformer architecture. They process information totally differently, which allows them to understand context, understand nuance, in ways that we've never really seen before.
Okay, so even if a model doesn't immediately revolutionize a whole field or something, the way it actually gets its results, that could be just as important, right? Like it's laying the groundwork for bigger things down the line.
Yeah, precisely. It's kind of like, comparing the old school combustion engine to an electric engine. They both get you where you need to go, but the tech behind the electric engine, that's a game changer in terms of efficiency and potential.
Okay, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
So this brings us to a really interesting example that the Fortune article highlighted, the Malmo model from AI2. What is it about this model that's, turning heads?
So Momo is really interesting because it challenges this assumption, this idea that's been around in AI development for a long time, that bigger is always better.
Right. Like this whole idea of needing massive amounts of data and computing power.
Exactly. But here comes Momo, a smaller model, and it's going toe to toe with these giant models like GPT-4 from OpenAI. I mean, GPT-4 is a behemoth. It's like David and Goliath playing out in the AI world. And that's why Momo's achievements are so significant. It shows that brute computing power, while important, isn't the only path to achieving significant advancements in AI.
So does this mean that the playing field is being leveled in terms of who gets to, be a part of AI development? If a smaller organization like AI2 can do this with a smaller model, does that open the door for more players?
It's a fascinating question, and it suggests that the landscape of AI development might be shifting. It definitely makes you wonder, right? Like, maybe I don't need to be a tech giant with unlimited resources to actually make a dent in this field. Almost success. It's like it's saying ingenuity, clever design, that's just as important as just pure scale.
It's pretty exciting to think about, more people getting involved, smaller companies, research institutions, who knows, maybe even just like individual developers making a real impact.
Absolutely. And speaking of, things changing, the Fortune article, it also touched on these internal shifts happening over at OpenAI. Pretty interesting. Remember, they transitioned from a nonprofit to a for-profit organization. Makes you think about how that might change things, in terms of where they take their AI development.
Right. It's not just about the tech itself. It's about the whole business side of things, too. When you have shareholders to answer to, things change, right?
For sure. Research is still going to be important, don't get me wrong, but now there's this added pressure, this need to create products, applications, things that actually turn a profit.
Okay, so how does that, actually play out? How does that impact the research and development that's happening at OpenAI?
Well, one thing to watch is data. Data is everything in AI. OpenAI has had access to these massive data sets. That's been crucial to their success. But now, as a for-profit entity, those data acquisition strategies, they might change. We might see more collaborations, partnerships, maybe even acquisitions that really shake things up in terms of who has access to what data.
That's a really good point because data is power, right? So if we start seeing more and more data concentrated in the hands of just a few companies, well, that raises some questions.
It definitely raises questions about privacy, ownership, access. All of that becomes even more complicated as these AI models get more sophisticated, more integrated into our lives.
Absolutely. And speaking of things getting complicated, the Fortune article also mentioned that OpenAI's CTO, Mira Murati, she left the company recently. I know we can't really speculate on why, but you can't deny the timing is interesting, right? In the middle of all this change.
Yeah, for sure. It's not unusual for people to move on, especially in a field that's moving as fast as AI. But yeah, with everything else going on, the timing is definitely noteworthy. It'll be interesting to see who steps in, what their vision is, how their leadership changes things.
Feels like we're watching history unfold, doesn't it? Breakthroughs, strategic shifts, these big conversations about, the role of AI in society. It's a lot, to be honest.
It is a lot. But it's also incredibly exciting. We're seeing a field completely transform right before our eyes. It's like, remember the early days of the internet, all that potential, all that uncertainty? We're kind of in that moment right now with AI.
And just like back then, it's important to be both excited, enthusiastic about the possibilities, but also think critically about it all.
100%. Circling back to what we were talking about before, how do we actually make sense of this AI model frenzy? I think it's about, having a healthy dose of skepticism.
Like, don't believe everything you read.
Exactly. Don't just buy into the hype. Just because a model claims to be revolutionary doesn't mean it is, at least not overnight. Take it all with a grain of salt.
So how do we do that? How do we actually, cut through the noise? What should we be looking for?
It's about asking questions, digging deeper, not just accepting things at face value. And remember, this field, it's still young. There's a lot we still don't know. So being open to that uncertainty, being willing to question things, that's going to be so important as AI continues to evolve.
It's like we got to become these savvy AI investors or something,
Yeah.
right? Don't just buy the hype. Got to do your research.
100%. Go beyond those flashy headlines, the marketing jargon. Look for those sources that really get into the nitty-gritty, the technical stuff. What are the limitations, not just the benefits?
And I think this is key. We can't forget that AI doesn't just exist in a bubble, right? It's all connected to us, our choices, our values. What we as a society decide is important. So it's not just, hey, what can AI do? Oh, it's what should it do? And how do we make sure it actually aligns with like our values as humans.
Such an important point. The future of AI, it's not something that just happens to us. We're building this, shaping it right now with every choice we make.
This deep dive, I feel like we've learned so much. We started out feeling kind of overwhelmed, but now I feel like we have a better grasp of, the trends, the challenges, the possibilities.
That's what we aim for, right? Giving you the knowledge, the context, so you can navigate this whole world of AI.
Absolutely. So for our listener, the one who's been with us on this journey through the AI model frenzy, what's that one thing, that one question we can leave them with?
Well, we talked about AGI, how it's driving so much of this innovation. But there's also this debate, right? What does AGI even mean? And is creating a machine that's as smart as a human, is that even what we want? So here's a thought. We saw with Momo, smaller, elegantly designed models. They can do amazing things. So does that change how we define progress in AI? Maybe it's not about replicating us, but about creating AI that works with us, enhances us in ways we haven't even imagined yet.
Now, that is something to think about.